Back to My Garden, episode 50.
Welcome to Back to My Garden. Discover your passion for gardening. Here's Dave Ledoux.
Are you concerned about toxic chemicals, GMOs, and frankenfood? Don't panic, grow organic. Discover my new resource for organic gardening. Just go to www.backtomygarden.com/myorganic. Attention garden lovers. Do you want to save time, save money, and have your most amazing garden ever? Receive free tips, strategies, and gardening techniques from passionate gardeners around the world. Join the VIP club for free today at www.backtomygarden.com/VIP. Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world when you listen to this. I'm Dave Ledoux, and welcome to another edition of Back to My Garden. And in this episode, we're going to go all the way to the West Coast. And our guest, Lara, joins us from Silicon Valley, California. Lara believes there is great joy in being able to connect to Earth and the life cycle of a plant. She's an avid container vegetable gardener, where she routinely battles rats, cats, and beetles for her gorgeous beefsteak tomatoes. She writes a sensational gardening blog and shares her combat and adventures at www.suburbanvegetablegardener.com. Please welcome to the show, Lara Fabans. Hi, Lara.
Hi, how you doing today?
I'm excited to have you with us.
Thank you.
I've given you a brief introduction.
I know, I'm just blushing.
I want to hear your story, and I know our listeners want to connect with what's been going on with you this gardening season. So take a minute, share with our listeners a little bit about your background and how you got into gardening.
It's kind of in my blood, is the way I'll put it. My mom grew up in Jersey City, and her father was an immigrant from Germany, and he brought over a love of gardening. So there they are in, all kinds of concrete and bricks, and he's growing something, even if it's just basil. And so when my mom came out here to California and adopted me, we always had a vegetable garden. And I would always go out and help and pick the hornworms off and run around chasing after my brother, or he chased after me. And, you grow up and you've got the tomatoes, you've got the lemon cucumbers, which are wonderful. And it becomes a part of you. And I'd never even thought differently. After I graduated from college, I didn't really do that much with it. And then I bought a house, put in just flower bowls because I was working and I didn't have time to take care of things, which is not true. You can always find time to water. And so unfortunately, my mom passed away in 2000. And that shut me down, and I didn't plant anything for about 2 years. And then I realized I wasn't being fair to my daughter, because this is something that I had wanted to pass on as a legacy. And it just kind of took off from there. I put 2 plants in the ground. One died immediately. And then the other one gave me 5 tomatoes. And I was just like dancing around going, ha, I am the goddess of the earth. I created tomatoes. And then I looked into container gardens because it looked like a really good way, well, the self-watering one specifically, because it reduced the amount of water you needed to use to have a garden. And so I never really do anything halfway. I bought 30 of them and I set them all up in my backyard, and I just grew a huge garden that first year. And my neighbors started running when they'd see me coming, and I'm like, it's tomatoes, it's not zucchini. But yeah, so then, people start coming around to get your tomatoes because they're really, really good. And it's just taken off from there. Every year, I try and plant something new and different to see what happens.
Fantastic. You've given us a lot to work with, Lara. What does your daughter think of it all now?
She's 16, and she actually loves going to the gardening center and buying flowers and then having me plant them. Or, getting seeds, and then she will plant the seeds, but she leaves the watering and care and maintenance to me. But I think she's pretty connected with it, and has put in requests for certain things to be grown for her. and mostly strawberries, and a few citrus trees that I actually have in containers.
Let's invite our listeners, Lara, to connect with you on social media. You have a great Twitter at Lara Veg Gardener.
Yes.
I still spell garden wrong sometimes, or gardener wrong. And www.suburbanvegetablegardener.com. Now, I'm going to put the links in the show notes on the blog at backtomygarden.com.
Okay.
Your blog is hilarious, first of all, in a tragic sort of way, because you're so transparent.
Yeah. Well, it's like, why hide? Things go wrong. If people can learn from my mistakes, or if they have the same mistakes and they see that I survived, or if I can make someone laugh and go, yeah, well, the rats got the tomatoes again this year.
Lara, we have a lot of city gardeners. We have patio gardeners listen to the show.
Oh, excellent.
Help us out on the geography, because we have international listeners. You're in Northern California?
Yes. About 45 miles south of San Francisco and about 20 miles east of Santa Cruz.
Okay. So when we say Silicon Valley, we're thinking Google and Microsoft and all the tech companies.
Yeah.
You've had one of the weirdest weather summers.
It was. Yeah.
What was this season like for you?
Absolutely the worst. I think the worst one was probably in about 94, when I was renting a house in Mountain View, which is actually near Google, and I'd planted 4 tomato plants, and they were big and they were beautiful tomatoes, and they never turned red. They just stayed green. And then I had to pull out all the tomato plants in October. That was heartbreaking. This year, the tomato plants grew. I was very minimal with water, which is actually kind of good, because then it makes the tomatoes taste better. Cucumbers prefer a little more water, but we have an understanding, the cucumbers and I. Then, but I mean, I had tomatoes, but not as many. And then when they would start to turn ripe, the rats would get them. So I set out rat traps and was catching one a day for about 4 weeks, which is kind of gross and horrifying on some levels. But it eventually stopped about a week and a half to 2 weeks ago. We stopped catching rats and the tomatoes stopped getting eaten. Although I heard a family of raccoons moved in.
Wow.
And I hear raccoons can chase away rats. I mean, this is all suburban living, right? You're going to have your raccoons, you're going to have your rats, you're going to have the squirrels are going to run off with them. And, I would sit there watching a squirrel grab a tomato and run off with it. And I'd be like, would you stop doing that? And the squirrels don't listen.
They're so dumb. They take like 2 bites and throw it away.
Yeah, one. Hey, this wasn't a good one. Well, then don't pick it next time. But so anyway, it was not a very good season. I think I got maybe 30 tomatoes the whole season, which is just unreal. But you know what is even weirder? I only got 5 summer squashes. And I mean, usually you think that it's going to be prolific, but a lot of the seeds did not germinate. I haven't figured out why. And those that did just were pretty much underproducers. I do get bees. Maybe not as many as 10 years ago, but I do look for the bees. And so they're they help with the pollination of the zucchinis.
Okay, your daughter has flower, or loves the flowers, so they're attracting the bees.
I hope so, yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Talk to me about your zucchinis.
Oh, I love trying different ones. Did you know how many types of summer squashes there are? I mean, there's these little balls, there's these, sticks, there's the curves, there's, your standard zucchini, there's striped, it's yellow, green. They're beautiful. I mean, it's absolutely neat. And there's this movement on, I guess, paleo, and you can take a zucchini and you can buy this spiralizer thing and you can turn it into noodles. So it's a really great way of eating up excess zucchini. If you're really tired of, slicing it in half, scooping it out, putting yummy sausage and cheese and things and broiling it, I can think of lots of things to do with it. but I know some people are scared of it. It's like, no, embrace the summer squash.
You just won some fans because you used the non-Latin version of the names of the squashes. The ugly one and the curved one and the grotesque one. That's good.
I just, I mean, that's like one of the joys of January and February is when the seed catalogs come and you start looking to see, all right, what's next? What am I going to try differently this year? So this year, the thing that I tried that was different was called rat tail radishes, which are not radishes at all, but they create this seed pod. There's a place here called Love Apple Farms, and they provide all the produce for a Michelin star restaurant here in Los Gatos called Manresa, which unfortunately burned down, but they're rebuilding. So she has these great courses on canning or their farms, and that's where we first discovered these rat tail radishes. And you pick the pods, and they're just this lovely, crunchy, mild burst of flavor, and they go phenomenally well in stir fries or salads.
The rat tail radish is not a radish.
I think technically it's part of the radish family. I mean, if you want to start talking brassicas, we can talk all kinds of different things, but radishes are, I don't know. It was new. It was exciting. It was fun.
You mentioned the love affair with seed catalogs. It's getting out of hand in my household. 10 o'clock at night, my wife is on the iPad going, oh, look, new seed. I'm crazy for peppers.
Oh,
and we've gone down a slippery slope.
It is, but it is fun. I mean, peppers need love, right? They need just a little bit of love, especially if you want to do the hot chili ones. And, sweet peppers, mine always end up being pretty small, but I have someone who's one town over who they're gigantic. So, it just depends on your microclimate, how much sun it gets. I don't know.
One thing that strikes me, Lara, is your attitude, because I'm fairly novice. My wife's very experienced, but so many listeners are brand new gardeners, and they would be devastated. I know I get upset when something kills my tomatoes.
Yeah.
You're taking it all in stride. How did you develop this, or are you just resilient?
Mom died. You just get connected to, no matter how much you care about something, things die. Yeah. And then and then from there, it was moving on to, I'm 40, almost 47. I make mistakes and I realize I survive. And, a 99-cent seed packet. Yeah, I want the veggies, but if it doesn't work out, it was a 99-cent experiment in what doesn't work. So I guess maybe I'm resilient, or maybe it was just, I come about it differently. I want to do this for fun. So
nice. Now, you mentioned gardening a lot as a child, and then you're in your 20s and you're busy.
Yeah.
That first garden, one grew, one died.
Yeah.
What advice do you have for a brand new gardener who is too afraid to stick a seed in the ground?
I would start really simply. I mean, radishes. You really can't do radishes wrong. You may not like radishes, but at least you'll see how simple it is to grow.
Fantastic.
And what's really, really funny is once you become a gardener for a few years, you're going to end up with things just sprouting, like seeds that you had planted 2 years ago and didn't germinate. Well, all of a sudden, boom. Next thing you know, you're like, wait, I didn't plant turnips there this year. And it's like, congratulations, you have some turnips. It just grows on its own time. And that's another life lesson that you get from gardening, is that sometimes it's not your time.
Yeah, we've got that with ground cherries. Have you seen ground cherries?
I've heard of them. I may have seen them, but
it's like a gooseberry inside like a paper lantern.
How fun.
And it's a low, shrubby kind of bush plant. And when they dry, they drop to the ground and blow.
Wow.
And they're shaped like a lantern. So the wind carries them into nooks of the garden and of the yard. And all of a sudden you go, what the heck is that? And sure enough, there's a rogue ground cherry growing. And it's not as bad as the mint, but...
oh my gosh. Rule number 1. Never plant mint, because it will get out of its container and it will take over anywhere it can. It's worse than ivy and kudzu.
Oh, what's that one? Kudzu?
Kudzu, I guess, is another bad one for taking over.
That's a new one on me. I have to look that up. Kudzu.
Yeah, don't
Excellent.
plant. Or bamboo, I guess. Once you plant bamboo, you can never get rid of it.
Do you know what your zone is?
I think it's like a 7.
7.
But again, we've got so many microclimates here that it's just, it's like, just try it. I do occasionally go to classes through the Master Gardeners, and that's a wonderful resource. These are all people who have been doing it a while and just love newbies. They really do. You end up going into it, and then they give you a free plant to take home and just play with.
I understand. I'm in the process myself. I have
good.
a rubber tree that I got from the Master Gardeners. Very good. Talk to us about your beloved beefsteak tomatoes.
Oh my gosh.
How long have you been? Yeah. When did you start? What have you learned?
I don't know. I mean, it's just one of those things I've always loved is a sliced beefsteak tomato with a little olive oil and a little kosher salt. That's all it needs. And maybe a little pepper. But yeah, I mean, you go to the store and they're mushy. I mean, you'll go to the produce stand and they're super expensive. So it's like, okay, I can grow this. I can do this. And some years I have had them like about 3-4 pounds. I mean, they're just like 2 fists together. They're just huge. And then going out into the garden and like picking it at about 4 o'clock in the afternoon when it's still warm from the sun and it just smells great. It's just like a pure Zen happiness. So, it's just learning. So what did I learn? It took a while, but I did learn that you need to go out there and you will get bigger beefsteaks if you grow fewer beefsteaks per plant. So you have to go out there and you have to pinch off the little suckers, which are the new leaves which come up. Mm-hmm. Because if the plant focuses all of its energy on a few really good tomatoes, you'll get really big ones. So you have to just monitor how many leaves are being, are growing and how many actual flowers are turning into tomatoes. And, keep the water kind of consistent, and then that prevents the splitting of the skin.
I was going to ask you your philosophy on suckering. So that's good. So you kind of persuade it to go big.
Yeah. Although one year I just let it go wild, and I had this one, and I let it climb up the tree because, tomatoes are vines. That's what they are. And I let it grow up a tree, and it was just so cool to see this utterly wild tomato. It was a hillbilly potato leaf, and it was one of the best ones I ever had. Had this big, beautiful garden spider that created a nice little orb web in there too. And he kept a lot of the bugs off of my tomatoes, and we had a nice little relationship, that spider and I.
I love the hillbilly. One of my favorite tasters.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, a little. Very good. I was going to ask you if it was just beefsteaks, but you play around, you try different varieties.
Oh, yeah. There have been times where I've tried starting seeds, and we can plant as early as April. And if I get my act together, what I do is I'll get some of the tomato seeds like from that have been developed in the Russia, Ukraine, like stupus. Is that how it's pronounced?
Yeah, I know that one.
So and then there's others that have been developed in Oregon, and they can handle the shorter days. And so my goal was to like plant those in the early spring, and then bring in the beefsteaks for the middle summer, and then have another more cold weather for the later fall. And didn't work out this summer, but all of the plants that I tried to start died. So I'm just like, this is not fair. And then so I did go up to Love Apple Farms because they do sell the tomatoes, and I got some of those, and it was their end of the season, so they were half off, and I just grabbed like 20 tomato plants and planted them, and they turned out okay. But I mean, like I said, it was not the best growing season.
My friend Heather bought a 99-cent, the saddest seedling you've ever seen at Walmart. They were clearing them out, and she said it'll never grow, and she had her first cherry tomatoes this summer.
Excellent.
You
Yeah,
never know.
that's the one thing is like if they don't look good or if they've gotten like really leggy, they're tall and thin but not that many leaves, you just plant them deeper, and then that way they can develop a really good root system. And for some reason, then it makes them bush out better.
I loved your tips. So you tend to water a little bit less to give the tomatoes better flavor, and you water your cucumbers a little more for flavor.
Yeah, it's like I'll go out and refill the containers every day for the cucumbers and zucchinis and maybe every other day for the tomatoes. But I mean, it just depends. If you end up getting a self-watering container, it's fascinating to watch how tomatoes use up their water. When they're in certain growth spurts, they'll want more. And, you can adjust it then to give them more if they need it. But if they're not taking more water, then there's no point in giving them any more, so to speak.
It's a brilliant idea because, in California, you're kind of obligated now with drought resistance and drought strategies. And water is going to be more valuable than gold the way it's going.
My husband still won't let me tear up the brown patch in the front yard and put gardens there, though.
Cactuses.
No, I'd probably end up planting spinach.
Ooh, if I can give you a spinach recommendation.
Yeah.
We grew Malabar for the first time this year.
Ooh, that sounds like fun. Is that a curly leaf or straight leaf?
We took a box, a raised garden bed, and stuck a plant in each of the four corners. Okay. And did poles like a tent to a rubber suction cup in the middle.
Right.
And the Malabar climbed the 4-foot poles and climbed for another 5 feet.
Nice.
So they were like 6, 7, 8 feet long. They're weird. If it was a horror movie, they're kind of moving around, and the leaves are the size of my head.
Oh, how beautiful. Oh, but I bet it's delicious. Bacon fat.
Yeah, really good. Yeah. My wife then said it was too tough for cooking because we'd throw it in the frying pan to try to soften it up.
Right.
And it would hold its strength, and it was really good for shakes and smoothies and salads. And
I wonder if you picked it when it was younger. Well, anyway.
Yeah, that's what we ended up doing, smaller, not letting it grow as big or thick.
Yeah, see, I still can't get into kale. I can't explain. I can eat anything else, but kale is like, it's just a little too odd for me. It sounds like it's a little kale-like.
We have a dehydrator, so we tried, and we're going to make kale chips.
Yeah?
And you just get the smelly green blowing through your kitchen as it falls out of the dehydrator.
I have the garden harvester, too, and my daughter had me buy some kale at the farmer's market, and she wouldn't eat it after that. I'm like, look, well, every experiment can go good or bad. At least we tried.
Exactly. I'm looking at the clock.
Okay.
And we're rapidly moving into the section of the call where we play our favorite game called 5 Quick Questions.
Woohoo!
Did you say woohoo?
Woohoo!
Awesome.
Always.
Always. This is your chance to share wisdom with rookie gardeners. Are you ready to play?
I'm ready.
Question number 1. In your opinion, what do you think stops most people even from trying gardening?
Fear of doing it wrong. Nature's been doing this for a long time. You can't do it wrong.
Good answer. We don't have time in the podcast, but I'd add that our public school system always penalizes children for being wrong and experimenting.
Don't get me started on that. Kids have to end up doing working alone, and then they get into the work environment. Next thing you know, they're supposed to work with a group. That's a rant for another podcast.
There's a section on Reddit, and a friend of mine says, "What's Reddit?" I said, "It's like Facebook without all the fancy buttons."
Right.
And there's a whole section on a discussion forum of people who have been prescribed gardening by their doctor. And this forum has got a couple hundred people that talk about the therapeutic application of gardening.
Gosh, I mean, once you smell the soil that you've just turned up, when it's like March, it's the most incredible thing. Everything else doesn't matter.
You're roughly my age. When you were in elementary school, do you remember any kids with peanut allergies?
No, not a single one. Or wheat allergies.
There was no such thing.
No?
Yeah. Like now you go to the principal's office with a letter if you bring peanut butter.
Well, I know.
I don't know. And that's in one generation. That's unbelievable.
I don't understand.
Question 2. Ooh, brought it back. Going on tangents. What's the best gardening advice that you've ever received?
You can actually grow in anything.
Do you have quotes around in?
No. I mean, you can grow in sand, you can grow in tires, you can grow in hay, you can grow in sawdust, you can grow in dirt, you can grow in containers, you can grow in the ground. You can grow in pretty much anything. So it's like if the people have these small patios and they think, oh, I can't grow anything. Oh, yeah, you can.
Nice. That's excellent. Question 3. Internet's a big place for gardeners. Easy to get wandering around. Can you recommend maybe 1 or 2 great websites of friends that are bloggers or resources that a newbie would really appreciate?
Well, one of my favorites is squarefootgardening.org. It talks about how you can create a simple square foot garden of just about any size as long as it's feet, and you can grow a whole bunch of different things. And you can, make it on a tabletop. You can make it in the garden. And he just makes it seem so easy.
I love it.
Excuse me.
We got that book in our library. It's all dog-eared and
yeah.
very low.
Did you get his new one with the recipes? So
no,
good.
no. He really invented a brand, like you know how a tissue's called a Kleenex or copy machine's called a Xerox?
Yes.
Like square foot gardening. It's just a meme in the gardening world.
But it's just, it's a great idea. And, the other one is that I think is interesting is growfood.com. And I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly. It's the Mittleiter method. And that's where they developed growing in sawdust or sand. And they go around the world teaching people to grow enough food to sustain the population in just about anything. And it's really inspirational. It makes you go, wow, I could do this.
Wow. Wow, that's big. You just won some fans on the podcast. I used to use space as an excuse, like, oh, we don't need a bigger garden. We'll never eat all that food.
Oh, pish posh. You need to go to Pinterest and see the people growing lettuces and strawberries out of old, shoe tree things, that they used to hang up on the back of doors. It's really impressive.
Shauna Coronado straightened me out. She said, plant a row for the hungry. I'm thinking, I live in a town with 35% unemployment.
Wow.
I mean, there's a Ford plant here forever. And then one day, Ford plant closed. And the kids of the grandparents that worked at Ford are waiting for Ford to come back. And Ford isn't coming back.
No, I don't think so.
So there's a lot of food banks in my town. I go, I'll give them my extra zucchinis.
Yeah.
In my town, they don't have fresh vegetables.
And it's just, I mean, you can can it or you can donate it. And I think I'd rather donate it because I think it's better fresh.
I will put those links in the show notes, folks, at backtomygarden.com. So, and we also have to plug your wonderful blog at suburbanvegetablegardener.com.
Right.
Do you have photos of your containers up there?
Oh, yeah. There should be quite a few of them.
A lot of people don't really know about self-watering. They have, anything will work. I'm growing a milk crate garden next year.
Oh, now that's cool.
We got them at the dump for $1. And I'm going to do like a story like if you're in university and you can't afford fresh vegetables because you're buying beer, here's how you grow tomatoes in a milk crate.
People do it in bags, garbage bags too.
Have you ever seen anyone grow potatoes in a sack?
I have not seen that. I've seen it in tires with straw, and I've actually played around with potatoes. But I think I'm not hilling them up enough, which means you keep covering them up with dirt or hay or something or compost. So that way it forces the plant to make the potatoes larger, whereas mine just end up creating all these beautiful flowers and no potatoes. But I persevere.
We have all graph paper on the dining room table plotting next year's garden, and That's the potato is a big question mark. We want to just, I like fresh baby red potatoes, so we're going to try
They
one.
are so good.
Right.
One thing I almost never tell people is that back in the 70s, my dad needed a sabbatical from where he was working in high tech. So we moved to the Ozark Mountains of Arkansas and built a house. And we had a 1-acre garden. And my brother and I had to carry water down there to water everything. And we did grow just about everything you can imagine. We grew potatoes. And we'd go down there and we'd dig like dogs and pull out these just little marble red potatoes. And they were just the most amazing thing you've ever tasted. These just creamy and delicious and just awesome.
Nice.
So yeah, that's why I've tried potatoes twice. It hasn't really worked out yet, but I'm going to keep trying.
Question 4. Can you recommend a favorite gardening book?
Why, I can. McGee and Stuckey's Bountiful Container. They explain that no matter how big your space, how to set up a container to do like even companion planting, which would be like having carrots in with your tomato plant. So you get, 2 for the price of 1.
Dragon carrots. Nice. You have tons of good tips today, Lara.
Oh, good. Well, it's good to be useful for something.
Question 5, our final question. It's part fun, part imaginary. Anything goes. Is there something that you are determined to experiment with next season, or what's something that you would encourage every gardener to try next season?
Well, I would suggest the rat-tail radishes. I'm going to try them again. They did not work out this year, so I'm hoping next year is much better.
Fantastic.
And
do you
then,
have a source for that? Where do you get them?
Oh gosh,
There's this thing called Google, I'm sure.
I'll mail you the link.
Okay.
I think it was Botanical Interests. Is that right? I don't want to be wrong, so I will send it to you.
On this podcast, I'm often wrong, so don't worry. Rat-tail radishes, and you were going to mention the second one.
Oh, cantaloupes. They're actually, I ended up growing like very small cantaloupes that ended up being the size of baseballs. They weren't very big, but they were really delicious, and they're just as easy to grow as cucumbers.
Do you let them go on the ground, or do you go vertical with them?
I went vertical, and I took my old nylons, and I would create little sling hammocks for them, so that way it wouldn't pull way down, because the weight of them, got pretty heavy, and I didn't want the poor plant to have to try and hold that up.
You heard it here first, folks. Cantaloupe hammocks. That's fantastic.
I'm sure I read about it somewhere. Trust me, there's nothing original.
That's great. So you have a container with cantaloupes with a little trellis with slings in it.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Did you get to eat them?
My dad took 4 of the 5, but I did get 1.
Was it
I
juicy?
spoil my dad. What can I say?
Oh, sure. I mean, he'll be looking forward to next summer, too.
Oh, gosh, yes. This summer he kept calling, tomatoes ready yet? No. Tomatoes ready yet? No.
Check out the blog. Folks, if you haven't already, go to Lara's blog at suburbanvegetablegardener.com. Some fantastic writing there, and nice garden photography. A lot of sympathetic votes right now, Lara. You've had a brutal summer. We're nearly out of time. You've been a brilliant guest.
It's been fun.
I want to give you the last word. Can you leave our listeners with either a note of encouragement or maybe a pearl of wisdom on their gardening adventures?
Just start simply and grow one thing and increase your confidence. Or do like what I do and just jump off that cliff and have faith that something will work out, because it can be an awful lot of fun.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for being on the show, Lara.
It was my pleasure. Thank you.
Hello, garden lover. It's Dave. All of the links, resources, and websites mentioned in this episode will be posted at www.backtomygarden.com/50. If you enjoyed this episode, please come by the website and click share and help us reach brand new gardeners. Have an amazing day. Happy gardening.